I just bought this Indonesian Squier Strat just so that I could do a side-by-side comparison with this Indonesian Fender Strat. But it turns out that this guitar is such garbage that you really can't compare it to a Fender. So I decided to do an exclusive standalone review of this guitar for you because I really think you need to see this. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Now, it's hard to imagine how this piece of garbage could be anyone's treasure, but there's a proverb. Now, I'm not here to talk about Chinese proverbs. I'm here to show you this guitar and why it's a piece of garbage. Now, this guitar has some obvious issues, but most guitars with issues have, the kind of issues that kind of fly under the radar. So they are still sold to uninformed customers. Now, what is an uninformed customer? Well, an uninformed customer is a customer who isn't subscribed to Guitar Quackery. So welcome back to Guitar Quackery. Now let's put this piece of garbage on the bench and let's talk. This guitar is exactly the way it was when I bought it. I didn't do anything to it. I didn't change anything. I just picked up a random guitar and here it is. It's a Squier Strat. Now, it's not exactly my favorite color, but I guess you could say that it would look good on a picture. Now, if you take a casual look at the fingerboard, you might think that everything's okay, but actually far from it. There are quite a few details that make it not okay, and we'll talk about all that. Now, I picked up this guitar specifically because it's a Squier Strat made in Indonesia and also without a skunk stripe on the back of the neck, which makes it exactly like the Fender guitars that are now made in Indonesia. I already have a Squier Strat here, but this one was made in China and it has a skunk stripe, right? So we shouldn't be comparing this guitar to the Indonesian-made Fender. We should be comparing the Indonesian-made Squier to the Indonesian-made Fender because they were made at the same factory. Now, the first thing that I noticed when I picked up this guitar was that it had sharp frets. Now, at first I thought, well, actually, that's not bad because it gives me the chance to compare the fretwork on a Squier to the fretwork on the Fender that is now made at the same factory. But there are other things that are wrong with this guitar, with the neck specifically. And we'll talk about all this, but let's first talk about these sharp frets. Now, I'll just show you here a close-up of the fingerboard right here. You might think that this guitar only has 5 strings, that it's missing a string. But if we look down at the bridge, we can see that it clearly has 6 strings. And if we look up at the nut, you can also see that it has 6 strings. So it appears to have 5 strings because this string is actually stuck here, and it's also stuck here. So if we unhook the string, we can see that it also gets stuck on the 3rd fret. It gets stuck on the 4th fret. It gets stuck on the 5th fret, 7th fret, 8th fret, etc., right? Even here around the octave, it gets stuck. So, in fact, it does get stuck up and down the fretboard. Now, there's something else that I want to show you about this guitar as seen from the back. So we'll look at the wood grain, and here you can see that there's something going on here. First, you see something here that looks like a nut, maybe some mineral deposits here, and here you can see that the growth rings here are parallel to the fingerboard first, and then they they go up in this direction and then down in this direction. And as it turns out, this is actually an important detail, as we're about to see. So whenever you see, whenever you want to buy a guitar, always look at the back of the neck, at the wood grain. And whenever you see something like this, just stay away from it. And you will see why. So let me place the camera here, and let me first explain what I'm about to do. I am going to take this stirring stick and just place it here, right here, okay? And now we are going to switch cameras, and we're going to look down the fingerboard from this angle here. Now you can see that this stirring stick is not parallel to the body of the guitar. And that's because the neck has a severe twist. Even if I remove the stirring stick, you can see how it's twisted in this direction. Now let's zoom in a little bit and look at the side of the fingerboard. And you can see clearly, if I change focus, that there's a hump right here. This is where the hump is. And even on the other side, you can see that there's a hump right here. Now I'm going to just place my finger here where the hump is and just hold the guitar like this. And then let's switch back to the view from above. And you can clearly see that the hump is right here where we have this weird wood grain. So the fret sprout, the sharp frets, are really not a big deal. We see that a lot on Squier guitars. We also see a lot of fret sprout on Mexican-made Fender guitars and even on US-made Fender guitars. It's easy to fix. But this kind of severe neck twist and hump on the fingerboard is basically unfixable. So the guitar is completely unplayable. Okay, while we have the guitar on the bench, we want to look at some other details. So why don't we have a look at the nut first? Here, I'm going to just show you the string slots through the microscope. So let's have a look at that. This is the high E string slot. So let's try to wiggle it. And let's try to wiggle the back. And surprisingly, this is actually a very good string slot. It's tight at the front and it has slack at the back. And if I lift the string, you can see a point here that's a witness point that the string left. So this is actually very good. Now, if we look at the B string, let me remove it from the string tree. We see the exact same situation. So there's a witness point right here. And it's pretty tight at the front. And we have plenty of slack at the back so the string doesn't get caught in the string slot when you tune it. The G string, same thing. Let's look. Oh, sorry. At the string slot, you can see the witness point right there. That's exactly what we want to see. And you can see the same thing here, the same thing here, and also here, I believe. Let's remove the string. Well, this one's getting caught a little bit, so it's a bit tight, but it's basically okay. So unless this might be too tight, and if it is, then we might have some tuning stability issues, but that's, again, easily fixable. So while we're looking at the nut, we also want to have a look at the height of the nut. Now, on a Squier guitar, I believe they just take a injection molded nut, prefabricate it, and they just install it, glue it in, and call it a day, right? I didn't see any tool marks from files on this nut, so this was never filed. So let's have a look. I'm going to use this dial indicator to measure the distance that remains after I push the string against the second fret, what the distance remains between the string and the first fret. Now you can already see that it's kind of high, but the dial indicator will show us exactly how much. It should be moving just maybe 2 check marks, maybe up to 5 check marks would be perfectly fine. So if we look at the first string, we put the dial indicator on top of the first string, we push the string against the second fret, and now we push it against the first fret, we see that this is higher, okay? And if we take a measurement on the B string, we see that it's very high. The G string is very high. And so are the other strings. Not so much the D. The A string is high, and the last E string is really high as well. So this is going to play sharp when you fret it down. It also affects playing comfort. So it's a little harder to push down on the fretted on the first few frets. So far this is what we see. Next thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the strings, and we're going to see if the frets are uneven without the strings on, and also look at the electronics. I know, you would prefer to watch a sponsored review. In other words, a review paid for by the manufacturers, the distributors, the vendors. In other words, paid for by all the people in the know. People who have valuable information about their own products to share with you so that you're informed accurately. So I hate to disappoint you. This is a non-sponsored review. In other words, I had to pay for this guitar with my own money. And because it's a non-sponsored review, I also don't have the privilege to have access to all the accurate information coming from the people in the know, the so-called sponsors, along with a guitar to show you. Well, what can I tell you? I just have to rely on my own conclusions here, based on my own observations. So, that being said, make sure you don't accidentally click the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Make sure you don't accidentally share any of the links to any of the Guitar Quackery videos anywhere on social media, including the guitar forums, because that would just bring more traffic to this channel, and it would put me under pressure to produce more videos like this one. And then you would get notified whenever there's a non-sponsored review. And we all know that this is really not what the community wants. I removed the strings from the guitar so that we can have a look at the fretboard. I also removed these screws so we can have a look at the cavity and also inspect the wiring. Why don't we look at the frets first? I have a fret rocker here, so when you place a fret rocker across 3 frets, if you see this rocking, you know that the middle fret is higher than the 2 adjacent frets. So it seems to be higher from here to here. Now the 3rd fret, I don't see anything. The 4th fret is a bit higher here, but significantly higher right here. and then not. The 5th fret, nothing. 6th, I'm detecting a hump here. I'm sure that these frets are not seated all the way. But to be fair, the frets on Mexican Fender guitars are also over radiused. They do that so that the string doesn't get caught under the frets on the side. But here, as you can see, there is a little gap as well as here, which is why that string was getting caught, in addition to the fret sprout that we already discussed. So if we move up the fretboard, okay, I am seeing that this fret is significantly higher than the other two. So that's the 8th fret. The 9th fret has a bump here and on this side, but not in the middle. Here, there's a bump, a little bump. The 11th fret, nothing. But on this side, it's significantly higher. So on the first two strings, I'm sure they would be choking when played against the 10th fret because the 11th fret is so high. The 12th fret is even higher, so definitely we will get some choking. 13th fret is high on this side. 14th fret is really, really high here. Nothing here. And then I see a hump here and on this side, but not in the middle. Okay? So the frets, oh, here there's a hump, are significantly uneven throughout the entire fretboard. But this is not surprising because it's a Squier. So on a Squier guitar, they just drive the frets into the fret slots and call it a day. They are not going to be doing a level croning polish job or a plec job like they would on a high-end guitar like a Gibson. Why don't we have a look at the control cavity here so we can remove the pick guard. Now I'm noticing that this wire is quite short, so it's difficult to flip it. Okay, but here it is. Well, you know, to be perfectly honest, this isn't bad. It looks pretty clean and neat. The wires aren't too long. And why don't we have a look at the solder joints? So they look okay. You know, but not very good. Obviously, we have mini pots. We have the shielding here, and we have the box switch. The pickups are the ceramic pickups. And here we see black paint. So this should be shielding paint. So it should be conductive. And we can test for that. I am going to put this multimeter here. So the way a multimeter works is, let me turn it on. So if these two probes come into contact, you will see that this turns into 0, it beeps, and the light lights up. So for example, if I want to test if there's a continuity between, let's say, the output jack here and this ground connection, we can see that there is, in fact, a connection because it goes to 0, right? So now we can test if there's continuity between one of the known ground connections. And we do have a little screw right there that's connected to this shielding paint. I'm going to show you a close-up here. So this screw here is connected to the ground wire and then the shielding pane. So I am going to touch this screw and then put the other probe somewhere on the shielding pane. And let's have a look at the multimeter when I do that. So there is a connection. We have a 5 kilo ohm read. So if I go closer to this, we have a 4.8 kilo ohm. So these two are not touching. So it is shielding paint. But you know, it's not the best, but I would say that it's acceptable. Now, let's put this back. And why don't we have a quick look at the back? So this is the Fender style tremolo. Here we have the 3 springs, the spring claw, connection to ground, and this is the trem block. It's the thin one, it's Squire, that's why. Now, while we have the guitar here, I also want to have a peek at the nut through this microscope because we can look from the sides. So, here, let's have a look. This is the first string slot. Now on the side, you can see that the nut is not like really well seated. We have some paint squeeze out there. So this nut would be very difficult to remove, I'm sure. Here we have a crack, so maybe not so difficult, I don't know. I'm not going to try to remove it because there's no reason to remove it. But yeah, so it's just an injection molded nut and it's been glued. We have a lot of squeeze out here and we have a protrusion here that we can see. So what we see here is typical for a Squier. So the main complaint on this guitar is the neck. The neck really should have never passed quality control. And now the guitar is simply unplayable. I didn't play the guitar for you yet. So, yeah, better late than never. Let's play a little tune. Yeah, man. Not bad. You know, it's a good entry-level guitar. Why not? You know, when you're a beginner, it's like learning to ride a bike. It's okay to have a bike with deflated tires or, you know, with brakes that don't work or with a chain that skips. It's an entry-level bike, right? All right. What else? Oh, I'm out of coffee. Oh, by the way, there's a link below if you want to refill my cup. It says buy me a coffee. So if you feel that you want to buy me a coffee, just buy me a coffee. Thank you. And you can come back to this channel and you can also check out the other channel. Oh, what other channel? Well, I have another channel. It's called Guitar Quackery Live. I put a link below. It's a live streaming channel. So it's the one and only, so far, live streaming guitar repair channel. You can catch me in real time as I work on customers' guitars. How about that? And I also send a link to my customers so they can watch me work on their own guitars. Yeah, that's it. I bought this guitar to compare it to the Fender. I'm going to have to exchange it and get another one that's better than this one, and then do that side-by-side comparison dissection video. It's coming up.